and enemies, welcome to Camera 1, Camera 2, episode of the Gay Bitcoiners podcast, here with my friends Tom and Aidan Karadza, CBP headquarters. We're going to find out what they're up to, how they're feeling, what they're doing. Aidan just turned me down. I offered him a spot on my beer league football team, so he's playing hockey instead. So not but we'll get to that. First, the sponsors. We have two sponsors. Do you guys want to do the reads for the sponsors? Like, do you know enough about Bull Bitcoin to tell me why Bull Bitcoin is a good sponsor? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so the first sponsor, Bull Bitcoin. Bull Bitcoin is a Bitcoin exchange. And I guess my favorite feature, everyone's favorite feature about Bull Bitcoin, is that they don't custody your Bitcoin when you buy it. You need to put in your wallet and your address. And you buy the Bitcoin, you put in your address, and then the Bitcoin hits your Bitcoin wallet. So it's the best Bitcoin exchange in the world.
What about kyc-free?
Yeah, go to post office. It's still happening, right? It
like 2 weeks, I think.
Okay, yeah. So kyc-free Bitcoin. All you need is print off your QR code. It's your wallet QR code, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your account,
your Bull Bitcoin QR. Yeah.
You show up with cash, and you can buy your non-KYC Bitcoin.
Nice. Okay. Anything else?
I
You can pay your bills on Bull Bitcoin.
Okay.
Credit card, mortgage, cell phone, property.
Wire transfers.
You can do wire transfers. You can pay other people on
You can dollar cost average, which I like on Bull Bitcoin.
Yeah, you can get your paycheck just deposited there, which is sick. I would never do that because my employer messed that up. There's a big story with that. Can't talk about that on the air. Okay, so Bull Bitcoin. CBP something is the code, or iwantbitcoin.ca. Do you know enough about EasyDNS to do the EasyDNS read?
I don't.
EasyDNS is the best place to host your content and to host your website via website. Do you know how many Bitcoiners forward websites? Tons. Sailor, famous website hoarder, right? He's got like love.com, hope.com. I don't know what else he's got. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's a weird, scarce asset.
He says there's no second best, but his actions tell me something different. It's websites that are second best, I think. So you can host your website there. You can do Bitcoin nodes, virtual private server stuff, master relays, whatever. Anything you want to do, Mark will figure it out for you. Have an email address in your domain. We have CanadianBitcoiners.com. We use it all the time. We don't have an email yet, though. We're probably going to get one this month, I hope, if we remember. And then on top of that, the book Unassailable, written by Mark. We never talked about this because he told me to stop talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Your stuff will never get taken down just because you think that policy decisions being made are no good, and he's hosting your website. He went through it during the convoy, and he's hardened in the fire, let's say. Okay, he's been there, and you can go there, easydns.com. I think our code is CBP Media. You get half off whatever you buy. So when are you going to start a website? You should start one.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, I had them back in the day. My dad helped me with it.
What was it like?
It was about mini sticks. I would review mini sticks.
Oh my god.
Mini stick reviews. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, they were sick.
Yeah, what's that?
It's a genius idea.
I think you were reviewing many sticks. Yeah.
I mean, they're all basically the same, are they not?
No, curves different, man. Taves have the best curves.
Were you doing the curves on the stove?
No. These were like the composite mini sticks.
Yeah.
These were like the composite mini sticks. These were like already pre-curved.
You would over melt it and destroy the stick.
Those were like those plastic.
Yeah.
So those were the best.
Those were good.
Okay.
Yeah. You could have the nastiest curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting composite mini sticks.
There's like one or two mothers in the neighborhood who really knew how to like work the blade on the stove.
And those guys have the best curves.
Yeah. Like they were
You couldn't use your backhand though.
chef's kiss. You don't need it. It's mini sticks.
Yeah.
Who cares? Tell people a bit about who you guys are. People know who you guys are. But
You go ahead.
I'm gonna put the chat up on the screen just in case people are taking time off their work to do this.
Sure. Yeah. Tom Karadza went into tech, worked at Oracle for a little while, then quit, started Rockstar Real Estate to help Canadians buy hard assets to front run the government debasement. And I've been doing that with my brother Nick, who's not here. He's on a Disney cruise.
Nice
I
guy.
think everybody should know that he is on a Disney cruise right now, hanging out with Cinderella. And we started that in 2007. Rockstar was incorporated in 2008. We've been working with Canadians, buying properties, rental properties all across Ontario for a long time. And that's it. That's Rockstar Real Estate. And Aidan.
Yeah, I'm Aidan. I'm 21 years old. I'm just about to graduate Western University. Bitcoiner now, I guess, class of 2020. Definitely interest in monetary policy.
And we've obviously best friend.
Let's
After a rocky start.
Let's say hi. But yeah, no, I've gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Now I definitely have a keen interest in economics, macroeconomics. And yeah, I've been able to work at Rockstar the last couple summers as well.
Do you like that working at Rockstar more specifically for your dad?
I do, but I doesn't really feel like it's for my dad because at the office I'm not really talking to him every day. It's not like I'm taking like orders or really working like right underneath him. So I feel like I'm more like it's more just like helping the family business, and I like it a lot.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to look at it, actually. Yeah.
And if anything, I probably work closer with my uncle than my dad.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't really do anything there.
I've never seen you do anything. I've seen talk to people about stuff in the fridge. Like give them shit about something they said earlier in the day, coffee, the podcast. I've never actually seen you do. If you say that you help people with hard assets, I assume you mean real estate. You can see it.
Now, I don't think I really have a real estate offer anymore. Yeah.
No, it is
I don't
pretty
know
cool
what I
though, because my mom's in a couple times a week or once a week, I guess. So it's cool for me because a lot of the family's around.
Sure, that's great. I do like that. There's something to be said about strong families and the time they spend together, like producing stuff. Whether it's like building a deck at home or working together in family business. I always like that idea. And I will say that in the last, I don't know how many years I've been thinking like this, but I remember when I was a kid, the first thing I wanted to do when I finished school was move out. And obviously I didn't. I had like no job. I was working at a pawn shop after university for a couple of years, going to teachers college, other stuff. But the thing that kind of changed my mind about wanting to move out is if I look now at the friends of mine who are sort of most successful, most balanced, it's the kids who stayed with their parents long enough.
Huh, interesting.
You know why? I think anyway. Because if the parents are willing to support you and can support you, they want to help you make what's going to wind up being the three biggest decisions of your life, right? It's going to be what you do for work, where you work, and who you marry.
Yeah.
And they want to have a say in that. And if you're out wild in some, slum apartment, like you're not going to have that influence. And it might be a pain. I won't ask you about that. But I would say the number of talking tos I got between like 23 and 26 ended up being worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's something nice about. I'm gonna be moving back at home now full time.
Yeah.
From Western, and it'll be a change for sure.
What are you going to do for work? Are you going to stay at Rockstar?
I'll be back at Rockstar.
Yeah. Full time.
Full time at Rockstar.
Salaried employee?
Yeah.
Benefits?
Yep.
I'll
May
pay
21st.
Got me
I'll
a
be
free
there.
coffee now.
But yeah, I'll be full time at Rockstar.
Nice. I don't know. I don't know if there's a better situation. Is there? Rockstar's a great business anyway. You guys are doing great things there.
Yeah, I mean, Rockstar shouldn't exist. Like that's like the running joke for our business.
Yeah.
Our business is a second order effect of a broken monetary system, and we exist as a symptom of the system. Like, really, our business should not exist. So,
Yeah.
it's the whole thing is a little weird for me. But to have him coming back, I'm a little torn on it. I think I've told him this. Have I told you that?
Yep.
And I learned a lot going, working in corporate Canada.
Mhm.
I learned what I don't like.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of skills. They put me through some formal training. We're a little bit of an informal place. So yeah, I'm slightly torn on it, but the mission and the purpose is good. So we'll see how this goes. I think our business is a little bit of a crossroads itself, right? Because we've been doing real estate for so long and really helping people. And we're trying to figure out what do we do with Bitcoin? How do we do it? How do we bring it into Rockstar even more than we have? And we've been aggressively trying to do that.
Yeah.
So
I kind of think you're right. Well, let's talk a bit about the Rockstar business and maybe how it relates to what we saw from Minister Freeland last week in the federal Liberals budget. We were talking a bit before we went on air about the sort of what we think is a lack of understanding from people who think that capital gains is only going to affect the quote unquote wealthiest Canadians, the people who are making a boatload of money, exercising their capital gains at more than $250K a year. I don't think that's the case. You guys don't think that's the case. What are people missing there? Maybe we start there. Why it's going to affect a lot more than just the 0.1% that was bandied about last week?
I think there's a disproportionate amount of people in Canada that produce a lot of opportunity for the rest of us.
Yeah.
And that productive class sees this as a threat. So when you force a lot of people to reconsider why they're going to be in Canada by raising the taxes on what they're building, because they're using corporations to build it. If you have medical doctors, if you have people building corporations now, and I've seen this in the last week, I've seen more pushback on why am I here in Canada anyway? These are people who create jobs, who service and provide value to the community. questioning why they exist here in Canada. If that productive class decides to leave more and more, then the people who don't think they're going to be affected, they're just going to have less things available to them.
Yeah.
And I think it's really just short-sighted. I mean, I see this on Twitter right now. I saw somebody on Twitter, I don't want to mention the name, but they were just saying deficits don't matter. And I'm like, how is everybody, they don't
Most prominent person. on
yeah,
there?
yeah, I don't even want to mention the name. And I'm like, you know, left-leaning person. But I've never seen anyone in the productive class look at something like a change to capital gains and think that was good.
Mhm.
I've never seen anybody who's not employed by getting handouts from the government look at these things and say it's good. I only see people who are receiving the benefits of government handouts and that kind of stuff look at this and say, yeah, it's good. Or you're just kind of not, you're young and you don't get it.
Well, do you get it? You're young.
Yeah, I think I totally get it. And I think a lot of my people in my generation, my age, kind of get it. So now I'm graduating, and people my age are seeing the salary that they're going to be making coming out of university. They see the price of rent. They see the price of
time ever.
yeah, they see the price of groceries. And I know, so I have some friends that are in nursing, and they're like, if I can get out of Canada and go to Texas, I can go to Florida, really anywhere in the States, like, why would I not do that? Why would I stay in Canada?
What are they saying about stuff like you finding a place to live? Rents are one thing, but I mean mortgages and the sort of talk, and even in the budget last week about the first-time home buyers, quote unquote benefits. Tom's looking at the chat.
No, I see the audio's echoing or something.
The quote unquote, is it?
I don't know. Is it just that?
Echo. Your audio is echo. I can't really
No.
see. Okay, maybe I can figure it out. Probably the camera. Anyway, continue talking.
Yeah, but no, in my everyone's going back home. So like everyone's gonna be moving back with their parents, and if they are moving downtown because of job that they got down there, like the parents are still helping them fund that. No job out of university is gonna be supporting like a living in downtown Toronto alone.
I think I'm surprised to hear that like your generation seems to be aware of what's going on and kind of how the incomes really that they're getting paid isn't going to produce the life that they want to live. They seem much more aware. I guess that's a sign of the time. You come out of high school.
Yeah.
You come to university, you look around, you realize, holy shit.
And I have one friend who had a job offer, one in Ontario and one in Alberta, Calgary, and he chose to move to Calgary. And take the job in Calgary.
Oh, that's recent?
Yeah, just now. He drove to Calgary last week.
So did he purposely apply for jobs in Calgary?
Yeah.
He's born here.
Yep, from Ontario.
Family's here.
Yep.
And he applied specifically in Calgary.
The
Why
job
would
was
you
e-
not?
The job was either going to be live in downtown Toronto or like move to Calgary and live downtown Calgary. And he's like, it just makes sense for me to go to Calgary. I'll be
What
taking
kind of
home
job?
my
Engineering?
engineering job. Yeah.
See, that's a thing. Like you become kind of not nomadic, but you're not tied to anything. If you have one of these jobs in like STEM, like business, I don't know what's another good example of this. Nursing is another good example.
Totally.
Honestly,
You have a
these
lot of
days,
flexibility.
people want those jobs in their jurisdictions. I don't know what's going to happen in places like Ontario, where it seems like we're unwilling to talk about the lack of supply. And I'd be curious to hear your take on that in housing. But everyone thinks that the fix is like the government taking on more responsibility, either by backing loans or by like building houses.
Mhm.
I'm a little worried when I hear language like we're going to unlock another 4 million homes. Like I don't hear houses in there and I don't hear build in there, but
Or skills.
anything. Like I don't know how, like who's doing it and why do you have to unlock them? Are they locked right now? Is it my house you want? Like
There's
what-
a warehouse
like
of
what
homes.
exactly?
There's a warehouse of homes.
We can't
up
find the
north.
key.
There's a whole, you didn't hear about this? There's a huge warehouse up north with all the homes are in there.
Can't find
And
the
they're
key.
going to unlock them.
Send help.
And they're going to drive them down the 400.
I just don't know what you're supposed to like. What do you say to that? And like you're seeing on the supply side, is there really an unwillingness to build? Like I'm being told by people in the industry, not named Tom Karadza, or is there some other reason they're not building? I mean, in my head, I'm like, these guys build homes for a living. They want to build subdivisions because that's how they earn their keep. They're not building them. It's not because they suddenly don't want to make money. What's the reason they're not being built?
You can't plan. So like the developers we speak to, especially some of the medium-sized developers, if they don't know what the cost of money is going to be 18 months from now, how do they project the sale price? How do they project how much they can spend on labor, material, what size of home to build, what type of home to build? If you can't make a projection, because you have to depend on the central bank that they're going to keep the cost of money the same. And now they've all been burned. I know multiple medium-sized developers who have lots in Hamilton, St. Catharines. They've gone through the zoning process. So they buy these lots, they carry this lot for a year, year and a half out of their own pocket. They buy it.
Yeah.
So they take the capital to buy it. They take the risk of owning this. They spend the money to make the payments on that while they're going through a rezoning process. Then they go through the rezonings, they get it rezoned to build maybe a beautiful duplex on there or even a quad, something like that. But the interest rates then kept increasing on them, that if they're carrying 6 or 7 lots, now all of a sudden, they don't have the money to carry those lots through the build.
Yeah.
They have to desperately sell a couple lots to just carry the other lots. Never mind taking more capital to build. Interest rates went up so fast, so quickly on them, they can't. And now they're trying to make projections into the future. And they're coming to us and like, Tom, what do you think the cost of money is going to be a year from now or 18 months from now? Because I don't understand how to do the projections on these builds. If you're a huge builder, like a Mattamy or a Tribute, these guys they are playing with different amounts of capital. They can make different decisions. But when you're talking infill projects that could benefit all of us in the community, some of these builders, they're just kind of holding back. They're trying to survive right now. So when you play games with the cost of money by changing the cost of money so quickly, so rapidly, then it puts the fear of God into people who say, I don't know what to expect in the future. Not only am I scared to build, I have to protect the capital I have to survive. So I'm just going to sit on any liquidity that I have until I'm comfortable that I know what the cost of money is going to be 18 months from now. And that's kind of like just the downside of central planning. Like when you have a complex system, you can't center. And I know that, like I know I'm preaching to the choir.
No,
here,
it's good. It's good to hear it again, anyways.
but this is from multiple builders who are telling us this. They don't know that. And then on top of that, where do they get the skills?
Yeah.
How many plumbers are we creating? How many electricians are we creating? How many plumbers? If you want to try and get a plumber to do something in your own house right now, you're calling a friend of a friend who's pulling in a favor.
Who's calling anyone?
Yeah.
I gotta just go on YouTube. I have no choice. I can't get even if it was something. Okay, so you can't see this on camera, but there's like backflow valves here that have to be cleaned every 8 months or whatever. I haven't done it in the spring yet. It'd be my first time doing it, probably this weekend. I'm not calling anybody because even getting a guy to come to your house is $300. You're gonna have a lot of people just learning. To your point about the building thing, I saw a great stat a little while ago. Shortly after the budget, it was maybe middle of last week or Friday. There's only something like 15 or 20,000 carpenters in the country. Those guys would have to be working every minute of every day for the full stretch of the next 7 years or 6 years to get those houses built by 2030. It's not feasible. And we're not bringing in, Conestoga is not bringing in any skilled tradespeople.
No.
They're not.
And there's an art to mixing things like cement. How do you mix it in the winter? How do you mix it
You think
in the
I don't
fall?
know that? Hey, come on. I'm making the demand in my sleeve.
But where are we training this stuff? This
Yeah.
stuff is generally handed down, and the people who handed that down are dying off.
Yeah.
Like all joking aside, the old Italians I know who
Yeah.
know this like an art
Yeah,
form,
for
who
sure.
pass away, that skill's then not passed down. So then you're depending on the colleges to teach this kind of stuff. And when I look at our education system at every single level, I don't see that being taught.
Yeah.
So now we have a future that you can't really, if you're a builder, what are interest rates going to look like 18 months from now? Where do I get the skills?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then who's buying?
Do you-
Who's qualifying to buy? And then where are incomes allowing for the qualification? And this is why I think we're in a future where longer amortizations are going to either UBI or longer amortizations in the name of helping the first-time buyer. I can't see how a government doesn't come out and say, hey, first-time home buyers, we want you to have a home.
Mhm.
So what we've done is we've introduced the first-time home buyer magic formula plan.
75-year AM.
Yeah, we'll put you in debt for 100 years, but we're not going to say that.
Yeah.
But now we've
The whole
lowered
family's in
payment.
debt for
Yeah.
So
Slave.
although the real estate market, look, we're in the real estate industry, and I'll be the first to say that real estate prices are way too high, but
Mhm.
they are a symptom of the system.
Yes.
So how do we collapse real estate prices when we all know M2 and GDP must keep going up to service the debt?
Yeah.
So how do we get the lower real estate prices? And this is, I think, goes to Jeff Booth's point, where the system is just acting out, and you can see where the end game takes us, and it's really not good.
Are you okay? So I remember when I was in school, there was like a general sort of distaste for the trades, right? People didn't want to be tradespeople. It was go to university at any cost, take whatever bullshit degree they will let you in for at any school, and don't look back.
Yeah.
That can't still be the case.
I mean, maybe in some people's minds, but I don't think so. My friends, the ones that are like the most well off now at my age, are the guys that didn't go to university, didn't take out student
Yeah,
loans,
yeah.
started working right after high school, like plumbers and electricians, and now they're killing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think it's definitely, there's been a flip there for sure.
But like, is it? I guess this is a hard question to answer, but the trend, was, let's say 90%. People wanted to go to university as a first option, and now that number is what in your view, in your opinion? Is it 80? It needs to be something like 50.
Yeah.
Max.
I still think it, at least in my like circle or my network, and maybe it's probably, there's like an Oakville bias of their, like those parents want their children to go to university
for sure.
But no, I'd say it's less for sure. Yeah, I'd still say it's probably 80% of people are like trying at least to go to university, or their parents are wanting them to. And I think that needs to adjust for sure. I agree with you.
And I think so many of those people have their heads in the sand. Like I have many discussions with parents my age who have children younger than Aidan. So like finishing high school, about to go into university. And they're like, we're really going to have to help out our kids get their first home. And I'm like, really? Okay, let's do a little bit of math on this. You have 3 children. So you want them to live close by. So you're saying you want them to live in Burlington.
Yeah.
Okay, great place. So you're going to have a home, like let's start with a townhome. You want to have a townhome. Okay. So we're looking at $1 million or higher.
Yeah.
They're going to put 20% down. So you need $200,000 liquid cash to help your kids each get a townhome. So that's 600,000 liquid that you need to help. And then you're leaving each of those children with an $800,000 mortgage. I go, the days of my generation thinking it's time to help the kids, that ship has so sailed that my generation doesn't get it. They don't understand that that's gone.
Yeah, but is it gone, or is it just now that those numbers are bigger and the help, like people still want to help? The thing I would even say is that at $200,000 per kid, the bigger problem in my view is that you're probably doing that at 50 something or 60 something, your kid's first home. I think I said yesterday on the show, in 2022, the average age for the first home of a Canadian was 36, probably let's say it's 38 or 39 now, so what are you, 24?
21.
21.
Yeah.
Okay. So 15 years or 16 years from now, you're going to be 65 years old. Are you going to take on, let's say you're just like an average, you don't have the business, you're going to, take out 800,000 in equity or more at that point, depending on where the price of real estate is. And like, what do you do? Right. It's such a hard decision
and
to
there's
make.
massive my point is that it still leaves massive mortgages.
Yeah.
So you're creating a debt slave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So great. You quote unquote helped, but now this person is tied to that mortgage for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Like, so now what? This is just a work camp. Now we have an area of.
Well, that's what they want though. Like part of the budget was like to take out your RRSP up to $65,000 at 36 years old. Like that's, how many people got 60 grand? I don't have 60 grand in my RRSP. I mean, I have a pension, but I don't think it's going to be there. I'm not wasting money putting it in somewhere it's going to be locked for 30 more years or whatever the number is. Who's got this? When you add longer AM to withdrawing all your retirement savings to real estate that costs $1 million to get into now, it is a working for the rest of your life thing. It's how it looks to me.
Work camp.
Yeah.
Like I just can't. I feel like, I guess it's just frustrating. Like the highest and best use of Joey's time to me, when I look at you, smart, intelligent, hardworking guy,
handsome,
committed to what you're
for
doing.
sure, strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Decent football player, apparently. Apparently, I mean,
Worse
we've seen
every
no
year.
actual proof.
Worse every
We've seen
year.
a few
We saw a
footballs.
couple footballs in the closet. Yeah.
I play football. Look at my footballs. But
My wife's
but the
gonna
highest
love
and best use of, like, for me as somebody in the community, and I look at someone like you, I'm like, honestly, I love what you do, what you and Len are doing. I feel like that you are serving the community.
No, I appreciate that.
Absolutely serving the community. But really, there's probably many other things that you could be doing that you don't have to be spending your time educating everybody on why the system's a bit messed up and to open their eyes.
Yeah.
And as a member of this community, I would love that you were putting your efforts in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're living in a system where you're forced to do this, where we're forced to have Rockstar.
Everyone's forced to speculate on everything.
It's and now I'm starting to get mad at this thing. I didn't intend to come here and get pissed
It
off.
happens to me every time. I get mad in here a lot. That's why the window's open, because I just wind up sweating. I don't know how to fix that. The speculating on everything is a good point. Like real estate is one thing. At least you can live in real estate and hope that other people will live in the real estate that you own. But man, what's the excuse for speculating on stuff like NFTs, Nvidia stock at all-time highs, options trading available to everyone and their brother and uncle on Wealthsimple. No courses, no education required.
Yeah.
Speculation is the name of the game now for everyone. And one of the reasons I think that's the case is, and I would love to hear your comments on this, Aidan.
Yeah.
A lot of people at your age and younger, or even a little older than you, because I thought you were a little older than 21, they don't see a way that saving and acting responsibly makes a difference. So what do? They just live in the now. Like credit card debt's sky high.
Yeah.
People are buying all kinds of stuff. They're balling out of control.
Yeah,
on their
I
champagne
agree
budget.
totally. And I think you were talking about this on Len on your podcast. It's like, why are people buying these random cryptocurrencies and NFTs? And I think before you understand Bitcoin, people see these like whatever on Twitter, these like 500x returns, 2,000x returns, and that's the only people like that's your only hope. What else are you gonna do? And until you understand,
so you
like,
can empathize. Yeah.
you can like,
Yeah, I can see why. And I think this is kind of, we were talking about this, I think, before we started this.
like, what else are you gonna put your money as?
That
someone
was
in
my
mind,
question.
where else are you gonna put
What are
it?
you supposed to do?
Like,
Because
you
used
just
to be able
take
to
you
save
take a 1 in 100 bet and buy like whatever coin,
Pepe coin.
or do you like put
Len
like,
has some good ideas.
or
for
do you
shit
put
coins
your
can buy.
$50 into the S&P 500 and just still lose purchasing power?
Well, 7% a year used to be enough, and now
Yeah.
the stuff you actually want. I mean, if you're just buying golden grams and fucking donuts every week, 7% is fine. But if you want a home or a car,
A ribeye.
or a ribeye, I would never.
Or a
It's funny
vacation.
you're saying
Yeah.
the 7% number, because that's something like, if you look at M2 growth in this country from the year 2000, it is 7% compound growth since the year 2000.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like
yeah,
we've
yeah.
all kind of accepted, or at least I have, that like at a bare minimum, you have to grow your net worth 7% a year. But to
Mhm.
me, it gets worse than that, because when I looked at the Federal Reserve's asset base since 2008, and to me, that's the year that capitalism absolutely broke.
Yeah, okay.
Like that was it was breaking for
Sure.
a long time. But in 2008, if you just look at the St. Louis Federal Reserve's chart on their assets, in 2008 just goes haywire.
Mhm, mhm.
And if you look at the asset growth since 2008 of the Federal Reserve, it grew 14% compounded annually since 2008 till present day. And then if you look at the
Is that
monetary,
it? Is that it?
if you look at if compounded annually, so
Yeah.
then if you look at the monetary base, and this is why I think the 7%, which I've been saying a lot, 7% is the number that we all need to beat, but I think it's way low. And this maybe goes to Michael Saylor's point, is that the monetary base is growing 13%.
Mhm.
So the monetary base in the US is growing 13%. And the monetary base acts as collateral to banks who then offer lending, new mortgages are created, new debt is created. That puts demand on things like real estate. So really watching M2 alone to me isn't I need to kind of go one step deeper and look at the monetary base. And if the monetary base is growing at 13%, I feel like, Joey, Aidan, we all need to grow our net worth. Unfortunately, not 7% a year, probably closer to 15% compounded a year.
Yeah, it ends up being a lot higher.
And then this is ridiculous. Now,
Yeah.
if you get out a calculator, have you
Here we
done
go.
this?
I haven't, but
Okay,
go
no,
ahead. You do that? I'm gonna move this hand.
If you get out a calculator, like, so let's say that you have a $60,000 a year job, $60,000 a year job.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if that's high, low. I'm just picking.
That's got to be like that. I think the average starting salary in Canada is probably like a lot less than that.
I think so too.
Yeah,
So
I would agree.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like we can pick any number.
Sure.
But 60,000, we'll just stick with it as
Okay.
like
Okay.
a middle number. I don't know.
Sure.
60,000. You're fortunate enough to get up to 60,000, and you're like, I've made it.
Cool.
And then now, if I go,
I made it.
If I go times
60K.
1.15,
Yeah.
so multiply that by 1.15,
Yeah.
because that's the number I need to grow annually.
Yeah.
That salary
Mhm.
to just basically keep pace with the debasement.
Mhm.
So if you do that and you hit equals 10 times,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
This is what your
7,
salary has
8,
to be in
9,
10 years.
10. So in 10 years, your salary has to be 242,000. That's really just to keep pace.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's do another 10 years.
I know. You're really cooking after that, right? Like even
So
5
yeah,
years. it's
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's $60,000 salary
Yeah.
in 20 years has to be $981,000 a year
Start a podcast.
to break even.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
And this is why
Yeah, that's
the
insane.
system is actually broken.
And by the way, that's no savings.
no savings.
That's no additional housing, vacations,
That's just-
kids. That's nothing else.
That's
No
paying for
additional
your golden.
output.
What did you say? Golden grams or whatever those
Golden
things are?
grams and donuts. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't even
the
know what
widgets.
golden grams are. But yeah.
It's
But
like
isn't
sugary
that
cereal.
absolutely now not ridiculous?
It is bonkers. It's
981,000.
bonkers. Yeah, people don't understand this, right? When you talk to them about inflation, the first thing they say is, "Well, it's corporations doing this." My friends, even if corporations had that kind of power, okay, they wouldn't be able to exercise it. It's the money supply that's causing these issues. I think
Totally.
people must understand that. Do you guys at your age, are you guys in the, not you, but like, are your buddies in like greedy corporations? They can't be. They throw darts
they're
at
not.
pictures of
They're
Galen
not. But I still
Weston
think
or-
when you go to the grocery store, everyone's still like, I hate Loblaws. But no, yeah, no, I don't think it's like, no, corporations suck and they're the issue. I think people understand that it's the dollar.
You think?
No, I shouldn't have said that.
Well, your buddies maybe don't,
Yeah,
but like the more
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
maybe like my roommates and stuff. But you're right. I guess. Yeah, no, not everybody, but I think everyone does now understand inflation.
Mm-hmm.
You've
like
been able to
we did it before. Like when the next stimulus checks come out, and people are going to see the price of goods go up again.
Yeah.
They're going to be more pissed than they were last time.
Yeah.
You've been able to orange pill some of your roommates.
Yeah,
Little
not
bit?
completely, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
I try.
The thing, someone, I won't say who, but I had guests here, a few months ago, someone else came to the podcast studio. And one of the things that we were talking about before the show is this idea of like orange pilling your buddies. And it's funny, like you think that your buddies are smart and they understand and they get it, and you're explaining Bitcoin to them and they're nodding along. And then you ask, are you going to buy any? They say no, or I don't know, or I'll think about it. I am of the opinion now, and this other guest was too, that the reason your friends don't buy Bitcoin is because they actually don't have disposable income.
Yeah.
It's a big problem,
100%,
and no one wants to talk about it.
100%.
No one wants to go down
Correct.
that road. But I think that's a big part
Because
of
in
the
their
equation.
mind, if they say, okay, Joey, I believe what you're saying, but if I put $200 in there,
I
and
can't
it goes
lose
to
it.
400
I can't lose it.
not
yeah.
only, I can't lose it, but
Yeah.
and it goes to $400. Okay, like great, man. What has that done for me?
Yeah.
So that's doubled.
Mhm.
So let's say the market cap of Bitcoin doubles, and we're all kind of celebrating that.
Yeah.
But in their mind, they're like, Joey, I took $200, I turned it to $400. I'd rather just have some fun with the $200
Yeah.
than kind of pray and hope it goes to 400.
It does
Yeah.
suck.
It's just hard to
sucks.
save. It's just hard to save.
And that's the thing that just is irritating with this system,
Yeah.
and that nobody kind of sees it. And then and that's why I really believe at the next, like, UBI to me is it is coming.
Mhm.
It is 100% coming. Whether you want it or I want it, Aidan wants it, it's coming, because what's going to happen is the tax base in this country is going to be so small compared to the debt load. I mean, it already is so small. And then when you have technology, like, you can't fight technology.
Mhm.
Like, technology, unfortunately, is the enemy of the government's current monetary system,
Yeah.
because technology is making things so efficient, everything so cheaper, and wiping out so many jobs that the tax base is eroding. And if you look at the way they calculate GDP, which is going to be a combination of labor or population growth, whatever you want to call it, and then productivity, and then capital, or said differently, debt.
Yeah.
So if those are the three components, population growth in all of the West is decreasing.
Mhm.
Productivity is massively increasing through
Mhm.
technology.
Some.
I would say a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we can debate that, but then debt growth is the counterbalance. So for example, if Amazon wipes out a whole bunch of retailers here in, Dundas, Ontario, or
Mhm.
all around the country, and they have been over the last few years, those are jobs that are lost.
Yeah.
Those are things that the government can no longer tax. So their tax base erodes.
Yeah.
Amazon then gets the benefit of this and grows bigger. Right. So now we are centralizing into, this is kind of like Jeff's boost theory in The Price of Tomorrow. We're centralizing kind of power in some of these big companies. The only counterbalance they have to that is to increase debt, because they can control debt directly, because they control the money printer.
Okay.
So now for every increase in technology that you have to have a counterbalance in the increase of debt. And if technology is increasing exponentially,
Mhm.
which I would argue that it is, and I know you're saying some, I would say that the debt is increasing now exponentially. And as by way of example, the annualized interest payments in the US right now at this current interest rate is 1.1 trillion annualized
Mhm.
current day.
Mhm.
If interest rates don't change by December, do you know what it is?
No.
1.6 trillion.
yeah.
I'm not talking December 2028. I mean, December 2024.
6 months from now. Yeah.
When we
8 months
started
from now.
Rockstar Real Estate, the interest payments on the US debt was $350 billion.
Yeah.
And we were freaking out. We were
Mhm.
like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And now we're going from 1.1 to 1.6 this December.
Mhm.
And this is the path. I think this is why, remember I was saying my attitude's a little changed in the last little bit, because to me now we've entered the debt spiral moment. and we're in it. And I feel like the next 5 years, I'm not talking 10, like the next 3 to 5 years to me is very serious.
Yeah.
And I can feel it. And I know that might sound silly, but everything we're discussing here of Aidan's group, your age group.
Now you can feel it. You can feel it.
And I
There's been
I
a
don't, I
there's a
don't,
vibe shift.
yeah, there's a
as the
vibe
kids
shift.
would
And
say.
I don't like what I
Yeah.
feel. And I
Yeah.
know that might sound like a little, airy fairy or whatever, like you're feeling something, but it's just like, I don't like it. And I also think that there's goodness out there in that Bitcoin is bringing together people who I really think are going to have a lot of influence in the world.
Yeah.
And it's possibly the greatest wealth transfer that I'm ever going to see in my lifetime, if I'm lucky, so that people like you, Joey, Len, Aidan, yourself, people like Anthony in our office, they have some Bitcoin. And there's going to be a wealth transfer to me into the hands of people that I want having serious influence in the world. And I think that's going to happen, but I just think it's going to be a bumpy road over the next few years to get there.
What do we do about stuff like on the side of like automation and technology? I'm with you that it does, it should increase productivity. I see Canada pushing against this in so many ways. And to me, it's like clear why we want this kind of low wage labor to keep GDP artificially high, right? If we can pay a million immigrants a year, $15 an hour to burn the shit out of your coffee at Tim Hortons, then they'll do it forever. They'll never change to a machine or an automated checkout or whatever, right? They'll just keep doing it because that's what Tim Hortons wants. That's what the country wants. Everyone's happy, right? There's going to be a moment at some point where one of these big corporations just like, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to start using the tech. And then I worry that you're going to see governments push back and say like, no, we are going to tax the computer. And actually, Floyd Marinescu says this too. Like there needs to be a tax on AI work. Because if there's not, the tax base is going to go to zero, just like you're saying. My big concern is like, if I think about 3 to 5 years, the big problem is that your generation, like we're talking about, is already looking at the exit sign. They're like, nah, I could stay or I could go.
Yeah.
Because why? Everything here is too expensive, right? That's one problem. It's hard for me to find a place to live. That's problem number 2. But the third problem that we didn't talk about is that it's harder and harder for mom and dad to help you find a house and help you buy a house. And so you're like, what am I staying here for? Not to mention that you guys, I think, are like the most sad, sexless, relationship free. There's no roots. None of you guys have girlfriends, roots, or anything, right? Like most of you guys now, where when I was finishing university, I had a girlfriend already, not the one I ended up marrying, but a different one. There was like reason to stay in like a province at least.
Yeah.
Now there's just nothing tying you guys down. Then when you add on top of that you can find a job working remotely or become one of these like digital nomad types, there's no one's staying. No one's staying, and the tax base is
true.
gone. You're the tax base,
And it's
right?
weird too, because when all these entry level jobs are just all automated, those are gone. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
like you're coming out of
When AI is taking your order.
Yeah.
Well, like, how do you learn? Like, credit to you and to you, Tom, and your wife. I'm sure, you're well adjusted. You have social skills. Like when I talk to you, I can see that you've done this before. But there's a lot of people who needed that job in McDonald's to learn how to speak to an adult
Totally.
and didn't get it. And so now what?
I'm asking the same question. What happens? Like you can't work at McDonald's. There's no more. They're getting rid of the cashiers, which hopefully they bring those back.
It is nuts, actually.
Those
There's no
self-checkouts
cashiers.
suck.
I know. Yeah.
They do suck.
Yeah, but
I
I don't know what.
Every time I try to
happens.
weigh my own bag on that thing,
Well,
I
it tells you.
screw it up.
Tells you something in there.
We were looking at videos the
That's
other
the whole
day.
point. There should be something in there. What do you mean?
Yeah,
What do
we
you
were
want?
looking at videos of like the automated,
the French fry.
the French fry flipper at McDonald's. Like it's nuts.
Yeah.
They have an automated fry flipper?
Not yet.
Oh, one of our clients works for Motorman Canada. They're
Yeah.
selling so many of those arms out into California right now that like hundreds of these things that will
So they are
do
being
all the
used
fry
then.
flipping for you. That's active. Right. Listen, a good friend of mine used to work for Tesla. He now works for one of the biggest companies in the world that creates the factories that Chinese and American EV companies will use to build out their factories.
Okay.
Have you heard of lights out factories?
No.
So he's just
But I
one-
know exactly what this is going to be by the name.
Yeah, so like he just finished the factory of the extension in Texas where they you don't need the lights on because they have 3 levels of robots that now have the
Automation.
dexterity to
Oh
pull
my
up the
God.
screws.
Oh my
And so you don't need HVAC requirements. You still have to keep it at a certain temperature. You
Sure.
don't need and there still are humans, but you don't need an employee cafeteria.
Mhm.
You don't need an HR. You don't need an employee parking lot.
Yeah.
You need a lot less lighting. You
Is there
need a
still
lot less-
DEI for the robot staff?
Of course.
Oh.
Joey, how dare you?
Just
How dare you?
want to check on that.
How dare you?
Got to find out. Make sure.
So So this is happening right now. So I was just with him last night for dinner. I'm like, is this factory life? He's like, oh yeah, that one's done. We're on to the next one. You got to see what we're building now.
Yeah.
And so this is to my point of where the technology is increasing. It just is happening now at such a pace that we're not even exposed to it. And I think Canada is so inconsequential in the global world and the global economy that, yeah, we can do in this country. Listen, we're a pretty small GDP.
Big time.
That if we're going to develop these factories in Texas and in Mexico, and, this stuff is going to affect all of us right here. And it's happening, I think, faster in a speed that's also just alarming me. Like, I had no idea that we're doing this. Like, we have Fry robot arms going out into places en masse. Did you see the Wendy's video? Did you see that one yesterday?
I don't think so.
It's AI taking your order at Wendy's.
Yeah, I didn't
where
see
somebody's saying,
Or what about the Freshie or whatever that?
Oh yeah,
like,
I saw that one.
it's
Which
like
one's that?
it's like some Indian girl in India on a screen,
Yeah.
taking your order.
oh, really?
And then like someone at the like that's
crazy.
bad.
Hey,
That's
AI is
bad.
going to take those jobs too.
I know, even the cheap Indian labor, it's better to just have some robot do it.
Yeah.
And like, by the way, I don't want to like shit on Anchor or StreamYard or whatever. StreamYard's fine. Anchor, I sent an email to last week because they have a bunch of new like AI services to like do your audio editing and stuff like that. I sent them an email and said, I want to try the suite, but I want to try it for free for a month because I'm paying for all this stuff somewhere else. And I'll try yours for a month. And if I like it, I'll switch everything over. There's a fucking robot responding to me.
No.
Yeah. And I could tell it was an AI response. And I wrote back, I'm like, no, I need a person to look at this.
Oh, boy.
This is not the response
Yeah.
I need. Right. And so the other thing too is that people now are so accustomed to just like getting a terrible level of service and support thanks to these AI bots. Like, instead of like actually doing anything about it, they'll just be like, oh fuck, it's another AI bot. I guess
Yeah.
I'll just have my fries with no ketchup. I guess I'll just eat my breakfast burritos with no salsa in the bag, just like old times. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone just expects the service to be bad. And so the service just keeps getting worse. Everyone is making money except for people who really like should be contributing to the economy through those jobs, through that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
They're not getting their fair share
There's something really cool that you're doing.
of work.
That you and Len are doing something really cool for me, is that you're bringing people together who are thinking in this way.
Yeah.
And I just think I really want to push you guys to do live events
here we go.
with people
Okay.
all across the country. And the reason that I want you guys to do this,
You fund it. Okay.
the reason
I
I
gotta
want you
find
guys
another sponsor.
to do this is because when I was over in England. Am I allowed to say where?
Sure.
Len will allow me
I
to-
told you,
should I say that-
Len's protesting. He's not going to be on this show for sure.
I did have to change my shirt. I did have to change
Yeah.
my shirt. To
Yeah,
come
Aiden
to the
came in.
studio.
Aiden came in wearing a real Bedford shirt.
So
Kinda
I
have
was
to
over
change
at
it for
Cheeky
you.
Road last week with my brother, Aiden's uncle. And it was really cool hanging out with Bitcoiners and having discussions, and you make bonds at a different level. And I think that gives me hope. I'm like, oh my gosh, there is a community. Like, we all know each other over the internet.
Yeah.
And it's really great.
Yeah.
But when you go and you hang out in person,
Different. Yeah.
it's completely different. And honestly, that gives me hope. You know how sometimes we'll say Bitcoin's like a life raft?
Mhm.
I feel like the human connections that you make of Bitcoiners together is really just exponentially a even better life raft, because you're just making those bonds.
Yeah.
And I think if we can do that across the country and across the world even more, that's kind of like the safety valve. That's the outlet. That's the hope that we all need, because there's this old dying system that's full of people who are grasping onto it, who are telling us it doesn't matter about capital gains increases and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter about deficits, because they're benefiting from that, or they don't know better,
Mhm.
to be fair.
Yeah.
But there's a whole other group of people out there that have the ability to make change. And for me, if we can get those people all together hanging out more,
Mhm.
it really has the potential to be powerful, and it gives me hope. So that's something that you and Len need to do.
This is all just.
I
did you-
agree.
Did you hear anything in there about funding?
No.
Because I
Listen,
didn't.
come up with the idea. Look,
Listen.
What,
You guys.
what
have been,
what do we need to get the Canadian?
we
Bitcoin-
gotta figure it out, because I think a lot of people, whether it's us or other podcasts together, right? Like even the conference last year in Toronto, the energy in places like
Yeah.
that
Oh.
is incredible. You were there for a
Yep.
day too, right?
Yeah,
Like it's incredible. Because everyone there is like
So good.
on the same wavelength. You don't have to worry about, oh, well, the reason that deficits matter is X, Y, Z. Oh, the reason that GDP per capita is
Totally.
important.
Yeah,
is-
make it easier when everyone's on the
Totally.
same
you know what I
page.
mean? Like,
Yeah,
I just want to dunk.
an
I just want to
advanced
dunk
totalization.
on. Yeah, I just want to dunk on Stephanie Kelton and fucking have a beer, right? Like that's all I want to do. and let's find out ways to make it better. Now we should talk about the conference a bit since it's coming up. Are you guys going to Montreal?
For the Friday.
You're going for the Friday.
I won't be.
You're not going at
No.
all.
Why? Where are you again?
I start work on the Monday, so I'm having.
Oh,
I'll be
yeah,
with
yeah.
friends that
Yeah.
weekend.
You have a God to be young again, a pre-work weekend celebration.
Yeah.
Got a few
I'm starting my
celebrations. Leaving
job.
University. Yeah. Well, he's starting in May because he has to go to, where are you going? Dominican or something?
Yeah, Dominican. Yeah,
Yeah,
Punta
and-
Cana
And
next
there's
week.
like
yeah.
another trip.
No, that's it. That's
Oh,
it.
no?
Trips are
Okay.
great. You should take trips when you're
Yeah.
young.
No, a couple graduation things are going on
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. You're graduating. You only do that once, hopefully. Anyway, the conference in Montreal, I think, is going to be super. It's going to be super important for the Canadian scene for a couple reasons. If I look at the list of guests this year, a lot more American and international speakers than last year.
That
Oh,
speaker
really?
lineup
Awesome.
is awesome.
It's really good. Saifedean is there.
Cool.
A few other people who like you will know, but off the top of my head, I can't remember a bunch of them. But it's a nice long list of people, and I think that this conference, unlike the one last year when the price was whatever 20,000 or 25,000, this year it's 70. It's gonna be a lot more hype around what we're
Totally.
doing. You know what I mean? And I want to see sort of the way that people are discussing what they're thinking about for their own Bitcoin holdings, right? Like we talk a lot about what are you gonna do with your stack? You got this stack of Bitcoin in fiat terms that's worth X amount of dollars. What is my plan with this? Am I going to take a loan against it? Am I going to spend it? Am I going to use it for services? Am I going to buy a home? Am I going to buy a car? I'm going to do whatever. Now, those sort of goals are going to be so much loftier.
Mhm.
And when people think that they have a chance to do something great, fucking they might do something
out.
great.
Yeah.
They might do something
Agreed.
great, And that's a big deal for a lot of people because people have been buying Bitcoin a little bit every week for 5 years or 6 years. Just now, right? They're really like consistently above water, right? Their head is above water for the first time for an extended period. That's when people start to think about what they really can do to make a difference. And that's why I'm hopeful about that. Now, in terms of like what you guys are doing at Rockstar, right? You work there too now, so I can say you guys. Where do you see for your client base, the biggest risks in real estate has to be short list, right? Government has got to be number one.
Mhm.
Number two has probably got to be, I don't know, interest rates or something like
Correct.
that, which is another arm of the government. What else am I missing? A lot of Bitcoiners, by the way, refuse to call houses. They call them liabilities. Like when I have people over to my house, they'll say, wow, I really like your liability. They won't say, I really like your house.
Mhm. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, those are the biggest threats that the governments are going to the government's going to tax assets. I guess I want to differentiate between your primary place of residence
Sure.
and like if you have some rental properties.
Can I ask you something? How many people, in your opinion, in Canada, by percentage, let's say, of like 40 to 65-year-olds, 40 to 75-year-olds, have two properties?
The latest stat I checked was, and this was talking to a mortgage broker, so don't hold me to this, was that 11% of mortgages in the country are for real estate that's not you're not living in.
Huh.
And out of that 11%, I got to think it's some investors have multiple properties. So, it's probably a small group of Canadians who actually have multiple properties or rental or choosing real estate as a hard asset to protect some of their purchasing power.
Right.
It used to be like 4% when we started in this business. Now it's 11%. And that was 2008. So that's just a wild stat. And I don't know where that was referenced. So I can't like give a source on that, but I was just talking to a mortgage broker who gave me that stat. But yeah, government taxing real estate is a threat, and interest rates is your ultimate threat because you just don't know what's going to happen. And we can see a couple interesting trends in real estate right now. We still have Canadians who are coming to us. So for example, we just had 2 surgeons reach out to somebody in our team saying, hey, look, I've done all the right things. I've S&P 500 index funds. I've done all the quote unquote right things. It doesn't seem to be working out. Help me get into the real estate market.
Yeah.
So we have to understand there's some Canadians, to introduce Bitcoin to them is just such a leap. They're just starting to understand that maybe a hard asset like real estate could work for them. So that's still happening. But then you have some advanced real estate investors who have multiple properties. So we actively have a couple real estate investors who have multiple properties who are choosing to sell some for Bitcoin. So they've gone down the rabbit hole now.
That's huge.
And yeah, that's new.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that. That's just a this year thing. So I just spoke to someone who I wouldn't call 100% Bitcoiner, but now they get the value proposition of Bitcoin, the store of value of Bitcoin. And they came to me. If I had to guess, I believe right now they have between 6 and 8 property. They've worked really hard. Like this hasn't been something that's come easy to them. They've worked their ass off to be able to pull this off.
Sure.
And now they're saying, you know what, I'm selling one of my properties. And they're actively in touch with Bull Bitcoin.
Love it.
And they're going to be buying some Bitcoin. So I don't want to get everyone hopes up that like, oh my God, here we're seeing the demonetization of real estate. I don't really think we're there yet, but it's the very first sign of where I can see some investors, and I would call them advanced investors, who are saying, I want to rebalance here. I might have like 100% of my hard assets in real estate. What's this Bitcoin thing? I want to introduce some of that into my portfolio.
Or even like a mini micro strategy play, I'll call it, like a property that you already own. You can refinance, put that capital into Bitcoin, and the asset itself, as long as you can carry the property.
You just carry that instead?
Yeah.
That's an option that some real estate investors have for sure. But the long-term threat is what you said, like government coming out, and it's not just real estate, but like all assets.
It's
like
a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of honeypots out
It's
there.
Bitcoin too. We talked yesterday on the live stream about how in the budget, this kind of underreported tidbit about, I think starting next year or the year after, if this goes through, of course, there's a lot of, ifs, ands, and buts these days with the election coming up next year. But the part of the tax reporting requirement for all Canadians will be you have to report your Bitcoin buys. So, they're not printing those lists to admire them on the wall and frame them with, nice plaques. They're going to start looking at how much you've made and whether they should tax unrealized gains or whatever, right? So, I mean, Bitcoin is vulnerable to this too, although a little bit more defensively so than real estate and business building and whatnot. I mean, what are you guys, when I think about your generation, one of the reasons I started buying Bitcoin is because I, didn't want to play in the S&P. I had a house and I saw that the S&P was going up 2, 3, 4% a year. So first it was weed stock speculation. And then
that's right.
and then basically like Bitcoin right after that, right? Are people who your age who like can't afford a house?
I guess in the Rockstar network too, I get a lot of questions. Is like, why don't you already have a investment property? Like, right?
Yeah.
And so right now, like, I don't want to sell any of my stack or all of it.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense for me to sell my Bitcoin stack to buy a rental property. At some point, I still do like the leverage play on real estate. And in the future, I still would, even in Ontario, would like to buy a rental property. But right now, I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think too, just because I've grown up, I guess, with him and whatever, Rockstar and everything,
I love
this guy.
I love the way
this guy.
I've gotten in shit so many times for not knowing how to address my dad when he's in the room.
With him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was never really thinking about investing in stocks to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my friends too, real estate, I would say a lot of my friends too, the first kind of big investment they're thinking about is a rental property, probably over that, over investing in stocks. And I guess it's easier to invest in stocks. They'll keep money in stocks, but I think the goal is to buy an investment property. I'd say for a lot of my friends.
Is it because you guys have seen
probably?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the thing that always like kind of got my jimmies riled up when I was in university was that I was just thinking about like how easy we were to deal with as students. And we were paying, back then it was like $350 or $400 a door, something like that.
Totally. I tell him all the time, my first rental property, I'd like to be a Western student rental.
Yeah. It's hard to say.
Do you know
no
what the
to
rents
that.
are on rooms at Western right now?
At Mac, $1,200 a door.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Pretty much. Yeah. That is on the higher side.
900.
I'd say the average is maybe like
9 to 12.
950.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's 1,200.
And it's still a room this size.
Yeah.
No, this is big.
Is it for a bedroom? Yeah.
Should see.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not small.
I lived in some.
But then I
shitty
guess
places,
a good transition though to back into Bitcoin is the when you show the four-year rolling compound average
Oh my
of
gosh.
Bitcoin, it's crazy.
This is from your deck on the weekend.
Yeah, it probably is.
I haven't watched it yet. Anthony sent me the link to the slideshow.
And I think when you're talking about orange pilling, that's a good way to
I
good
think
way to
for
start.
some people my age, because then they can actually hear it. Because some of my friends work on Bay Street and they work in some big funds. They work for pension funds. They work in capital markets.
I think like the Fidelity and BlackRock too, though ETFs do help with like the Wall Street people as well, slightly.
For
It
sure.
has to.
Yeah, sure.
Because
just to continue what you said there, that compound annual growth rate for my generation, that gets their attention. Because
I think it has to for mine as
for
well.
everyone.
For sure. For
back
me,
in January, it's higher now, but in January, I ran it around my birthday, and I couldn't believe the number. Like it was 46% compounded annually from January 2020 to January 2024. That includes both run ups
and rundowns
and the rundown And I honestly couldn't believe it.
That's a COVID low too, right? The COVID low came in March 2020. So you add that as
You
well.
include that,
Yeah, I
that would be
guess.
in there. So
Yeah.
that's 46% compounded annually.
Mhm.
That is tough to, and then if you look and compare that against the PE ratios of some companies that you would invest in,
Sure.
it just makes your mind like, and again, for my generation that looks at maybe financial markets with PE ratios and that kind of thing, it is hard to justify when you have this much data on Bitcoin now, when you look at the PE ratios that you're investing in some of these stocks in. It's like Bitcoin becomes a very hard thing to argue against.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And the other thing too, I would say is that if I look at the stock market, let's say you pick one of these like Mag 7 stocks, how many of the Mag 7 are under pressure from government because of their size and dominance? Tesla's under pressure because Elon owns Twitter. You see Microsoft can't close with Activision and Blizzard on a merger.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Google and Apple are under antitrust
Yeah.
lawsuits for the app stores and for the color your text message bubbles.
OpenAI must have the attention.
For sure they do. And so this is the other thing I think people don't realize when they're investing in stocks. There's execution risk, right? You have to hope that the CEO doesn't cheat on his wife at a fucking yacht party or something, because if he gets caught on camera, the stock tanks 15%. You have to hope that Tim Cook doesn't get hit by a bus, right? And you have to hope that some Senator Warren Spurg doesn't freak out one day and say like, no, we can't have this company's too big. The market cap's too big. There's too much dominance. And they just come for you. All it takes is a Twitter post, knock your stock down 5%. People are going to realize at some point that the risk isn't in Bitcoin. It's in all this other stuff. And I think to your point earlier about the real estate, for a guy who owns 8 properties to sell one, many people who are skeptical would say, "Oh, it's only one property out of 8." I would say this guy went from 100% to not 100%, and he didn't go to the fucking VFB, he didn't go to bonds.
And remember, he worked
GICs.
hard to qualify the banks,
You
to
know,
be able to pull that off,
a
to
lot of
have
pressure,
equity in the other properties, to try to pull that out, to buy another property, to deal with like he has dealt with a lot. So to make the decision to let one go,
it's a lot.
And that's in 2024. I've never seen that before. I can say that I've never seen that before multiple times. Maybe in 2023, I heard of someone, but now I'm seeing it multiple times with multiple people.
Right.
And I don't want it to seem like an avalanche. I haven't seen like this avalanche.
No, but it's starting.
It's starting.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean, like you said earlier, that the entire asset class is demonetizing. I own my home. I don't think that this was a bad investment. I don't think my first house was a bad investment. But and I said this to my dad the other day too, because he's a property guy. I said, you have to look at the writing on the wall here and ask yourself if you're the one being kind of othered by the government now, you're the one in the crosshairs. There seems to be a lack of willingness to address key issues and budgets and spending and things like that. And instead they're looking at business owners, the 1% or whatever. And I don't think he's in the 1%. I don't think you guys are in the 1%. Why should it? You have to, you started a business, you own a couple properties. Like, it's not a 1% thing. I'm just doing what was, important to me, the right decision, get out of the dollar, or the loonie, I should say, and try and protect my family's wealth, stuff that was passed to me that I want to pass down. And
then you're also vilified in the media.
Yeah.
Right? Like those damn real estate investors.
You were telling me, weren't you telling me that one of the things you guys give to your clients is like, prepare for your neighbors to hate you?
Yeah, I think back in 2017,
before
we even really knew about Bitcoin, we were saying, hey, prepare to be vilified. Like everyone in this room, you're doing the right thing for you and your family, but you will be vilified in the media.
Yeah.
And we were calling that out years ago. And now to see it really start to come out is interesting.
Brutal.
Yeah. There was something you were saying about that made me think about just my generation. So I'm 51.
Yeah.
And I think my generation and definitely the boomer generation ahead of me, they have done so well with this system that when you're talking to people of my age or older, they really don't want to see Bitcoin or have any need for it, because if they have a house and they have a cottage and they're going on vacation and they maybe started a company downtown Toronto, or they're a partner at some law firm in Toronto, they kind of pat you on the head a little bit and say, hey, like, Tom, that's really cute. Like, that's cute. Really nice thing with this Bitcoin thing. Really nice. But, I'm about to go to France this summer. Can you tell me, my 2-week vacation, and maybe it's a stretch for, it's not like it's an easy thing. They're going to spend money to do it. And it's a big decision to spend that money to do it. But they're more interested in like, hey, do you have the name of a hotel in Paris that you can recommend? Because they've done well. The system's kind of worked for them. So to speak to someone, and that's what interests me about people like Greg Foss and Jeff Booth, some of these guys who get it,
Mhm.
because they didn't really have to get it. There was no real incentive for them to get it.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like it's cool that you get it and Aiden's generation, but you guys were almost forced to get it. It was like, shit, what's going on with the system?
Yeah.
I
yeah.
need to look into it.
That's how I feel.
But some
Yeah,
of these guys, they didn't really, they've done pretty well. And that's honestly what impresses me about some of these guys the most. Like, holy shit,
Mhm.
these guys didn't have to, there was no real incentive for them to get it.
Yeah.
There's no incentive for Greg going around talking the way he did and trying to educate an orange pill,
Mhm.
for Jeff to do the same kind of thing. And I feel really impressed by that kind of thing, because people in my generation, they just think it's a cute little thing.
Yeah.
They don't see it as anything bigger. And I think that's kind of part of, unfortunately, the problem.
And I guess too, everyone in those generations, like the fiat world was just completely normal, and it's what they've known since they were a kid.
When we started the exactly. When we started the business, we were just talking about this in the office the other day. When we started the business, real estate was the only answer.
Yeah.
Like real estate was
For
the
sure.
escape hatch.
Yeah.
It was like, holy crap, we can do this real estate thing.
Well, we see that the results of that and the cost of real estate, right? Like everyone realized around the same time, this is the only thing you can do to protect yourself.
Well,
with
you had
big
those low
chunks.
rates for like 10 years. We
Yeah.
just we rode a trend. Let's face it, we were a little lucky in getting into real estate and then staying in that. Some of it's not all smarts.
Mhm.
You just have low interest rates and you're kind of riding that wave.
Yeah.
But now we were just talking about this again. Can you imagine a world without Bitcoin right now?
Yeah.
Like, can you
I know.
imagine a
I
world
know.
without Bitcoin right now? And that's why the technology is so fascinating to me. And I think that's really kind of what sold me personally on it, was that when I started to understand the technology behind this thing, I thought it was just this cute little token online. Like, I didn't get it until 2020.
Mhm.
And then I had flashbacks to my Oracle days of like, holy smokes, this is a bigger technology. This is like, and I know this is probably an overplayed thing right now, but this is like TCP/IP. This is a new protocol.
Mhm.
This isn't just some coin. This is a protocol. And when I started working at Oracle, I started in tech support. And in tech support, there was those of us that supported Windows and Unix. I don't know if you know about Unix or heard Unix. Okay. And then there was network support. So the guy who sat next to me, he supported Novell Networks. And I would ask him, I'm like, what's Novell Networks? And he's like, oh, not only do I support Novell Networks, I support NetBIOS and Apple Talk. And I'm like, what are these things? And he goes, these are other network protocols. And he goes, they're all dying off. And I'm like, well, why are they dying off? He's like, well, TCP/IP
We're gonna move to one. Yeah.
is just got the network effect and devoured everybody.
the open network.
The open network, because Novell Networks was a closed network. It was like a corporate network. Novell Netware was the name of the company.
Mhm.
It was like a proprietary network. And it was a closed system because it was corporately owned, versus TCP/IP that was open. So when I started learning about Bitcoin, then I had flashbacks to that conversation. I'm like, wait a second, this is an open monetary network
Yeah.
against a closed system.
Looks
and then
familiar,
I had
eh? Looks familiar.
and then I had another one with Linux. And I'm sure you've heard of Linux, but
My
when-
co-host who's in the chat, when he's not talking about NHL,
that's right. He's always talking to me.
Linux.
Okay, so
Yeah.
when I was in tech support at Oracle, we supported AIX Unix, Sun Microsystems Unix, a whole bunch of flavors of Unix. And Sun Microsystems was like, everybody wanted the Sun Microsystems flavor of Unix. That was like, if you were a techie running an Oracle database, that was like the hot shit. Like, you wanted Sun
The
Microsystems.
computers when we were kids in elementary school had Unix on them. I was thinking
Yeah,
about
did
this when
they?
you mentioned it a second ago. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. I'm having like
So then
flashbacks here.
Linux came out, and Linux started devouring the market share of Sun Microsystems. Was a public company that Oracle then bought a few short years later.
Mhm.
For
I don't know what Linux
I
or any
feel
of
like
this
it was
is.
pennies on the dollar. I don't know the yeah. So then Linux took over that market share. Linux was open source and started eating the lunch of the closed Unix systems.
Mhm.
So then I was flashing back to like, this Bitcoin thing's open. Another example of a closed system devouring an open system. And Bitcoin just started to make more and more sense. And I remember a few friends used to work at BlackBerry, and BlackBerry was a closed system. All the communications used to go through Waterloo.
Yep.
And then the iPhone came out, and the iPhone was using TCP/IP, and it just devoured BlackBerry that couldn't really handle and grow and scale using their closed system.
Yeah.
So to me, again, it was just all these technologies that were just closed systems that the open system devoured. And that's how I look at Bitcoin. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an open network. This is inevitable. This is an inevitable thing. And that's kind of really just led me down the path of Bitcoin, getting more and more confidence in Bitcoin. And then the pureness of the technology stack in Bitcoin is really interesting. When I worked at Oracle, we tried to launch database technology. Stop me if this is like too
Keep
crazy.
going.
We inside the database, And this is where I start to understand Ethereum. Inside the Oracle database, they tried to launch portals. So portals were things like on the internet now that everyone knows, like you could log into a website.
Oh yeah, like a
And-
portal. Okay, yeah.
But
yeah,
what they
yeah.
tried to do is instead of on the tech stack, run it as separate technologies, which was much better and much faster. Oracle tried to embed the portal software inside the database. So this website that you would visit was executing inside an Oracle database,
Mhm.
which I don't want to get too technical here, but that is chaos. Like that is shit. It
Yeah.
ran slow. It was hard to, I used to support it. We used to try to sell this stuff, but then other people were competing against us and they would separate it out. It was just like the database should just do what the database does. And the execution layer of software, launching the websites, should be the best at doing that. And they should be two separate things. So then when I started to learn about Ethereum, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're trying to do everything inside this one layer.
Yeah.
Just like when I was at Oracle and we tried to stick everything inside the database, as the value proposition of the Oracle database was like, you just need this one database.
everything.
It's everything. And I was the guy installing it, trying to make it work. And it wasn't quite as good as separating it out. And it taught me that tech stacks should be very simple and clean if they're going to scale. So like I had all these flashbacks when I was going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole to my old tech days. I'll stop now on the tech stuff, but it just gave me clarity. It just gave me clarity. I'm looking at you guys. I'm like, is this just
No,
crazy?
but this is important, right? Like this is why Bitcoin is so much fun, because people come to it from different points
Oh,
of view,
geez.
right? Like you remember the database thing. You're like, this is not simple enough on the east side. Great simplicity and open network on the Bitcoin side. This thing's going to be the one that.
Yeah,
takes the
I thought
cake.
you did a good job dumbing it down to in that like open versus closed network presentation that you gave at the event.
Yeah,
which is
we-
kinda
we
what you
tried
just
to
mentioned.
communicate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think too, you and Len were talking about Lightning, and like you were talking about an open network, and maybe if Lightning might not be the layer 2 that's can scale and be the layer 2 forever. But I think it was Jack Mahler saying like it almost doesn't matter. I don't know if it was Jack Mahler talking about this, but like an open network, it doesn't matter. Like the best product will always win. So
Yeah.
Lightning could be a step. I think Len was saying this as well. Lightning is just a step to the next best thing if it's not Lightning. And I don't know, the analogy was like there was MySpace and then there was Facebook and then
yeah.
so on the open network, just the best products will win.
Everyone is like, it's a big deal to me that people have this point of view that Bitcoin is just a network. It's not necessarily a finished product. It's not done being built yet. It's not done developing.
Oh.
But the baseline thing, the mining, the issuance, the difficulty adjustment, all that stuff, that's never going to change. That's your value
Mind
prop.
blowing.
Yeah,
That's your value
Mind
that
prop.
layer 1. That did take me a
Mind
while to
blowing.
understand
Everything
as well.
else,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so do you get it now?
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it
Mind-blowing.
took hours probably for
Yeah,
sure.
Ours is nothing, man. People, I've been throwing this stuff at people in my life for 5 years,
Yeah.
6 years, 7 years, right?
Credit
Never
to,
ending.
credit to
Yeah.
YouTube, because I know how difficult it can be to orange pill, and I know you guys both have. So, and I know it's difficult. It's not easy. And you guys have managed to do it.
When we were in England, we brought a good friend of ours, Jonathan, who moved to the UK, and he's like, "You're coming to the UK?" I'm like, "I'm going to this Bitcoin conference. Join me if you want." But I just want you to know something. Like, I'm really interested in this. I'm not going to this conference. Like back in the corporate days, you would go to conferences as an excuse to just go to
You
restaurants.
could go to
and bother.
Vegas and then
But I'm like, I'm going to this conference. I actually want to pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in this stuff.
Yeah.
So like, if you're coming here, just know that I'm not like not going.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in there listening. And he came and at the beginning, they launched the conference and they were screaming, Bitcoin. Bitcoin.
Nice.
And he looked at me, he goes,
where am I?
what is this? Where have you
That's
taken me?
funny.
And I'm like, just stick with it. Just stick with it.
Do you-
While I'm screaming Bitcoin.
Okay, last question, off the beaten path a little bit. I'm bringing my wife to Montreal for the conference.
Awesome.
What advice do you have for me so that she doesn't go crazy watching some of the stuff? She thinks she's not going to watch any of it. I'm demanding that she come to at least a few things, including I'm going to be on a panel. Like, you have to come to that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
totally.
Yeah. I don't know. Everyone's got to come at it at their
But
own time.
what does your wife think about Bitcoin? What do you talk to her about?
I don't know. What does mom think about Bitcoin?
I don't know. She probably gets annoyed at us sometimes at the dinner table.
Talk about it a lot. We talk about it a lot. And
No,
we were
but I
talking
don't
to her
know.
about the halving. I'm like, the halving's tonight, Carol. The halving is
And then
tonight.
I know she, you know what?
Get a good bottle of
And then I
wine.
think
Get a good bottle of wine.
Mom said that. Like, mom said that because that was when I came up from London. She goes, "Dad told me this 5 times today." Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
No, but I think mom
she's
has a good
supportive.
understanding.
I
Totally.
think now after years, she's
I think so
supportive.
too.
I think she likes
Even
it.
my little
Yeah,
sister
yeah.
Sienna is stacking.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She's
What do you mean?
definitely more
How old's your little sister?
grade 12.
Okay, so she's not a kid.
No,
okay.
sorry.
I was gonna say like Len's daughter's like 10 or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
She's got
yeah.
a little stack like being
But
built
yeah,
up,
yeah.
right?
Sienna's definitely more interested in price action for sure. But
She's very interested in the price action.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I
Is
love
Bitcoin
it.
up today? Is Bitcoin up today?
That's the ticket. Okay, let's get you guys out of here. Final comments, closing thoughts.
I mean, love what you're doing. I think you don't like to hear it. I don't think you and Len like.
I like to hear it, but I think that we're not the
Keep
only ones.
doing-
You're doing it too.
Yeah, no, we're all doing.
When are
it.
you going to start? Everyone at Rockstar's got a podcast. What are you waiting for?
I'll hop on some
I see
episodes.
guys in Florida talking to guys who I don't know about. Oh, this guy's he bought a house once. Let's get him on
I'm
a
looking
video.
forward to the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast live events right across the
man.
country. That's what I'm looking forward to, and that's what I want to leave you with. So
We'll
thank
start-
you.
Yeah,
for-
shout out to CBP.
We'll
Yeah.
start no Phil.
Yeah, say hi to
bless you
Len.
both.
Say
God
hi
bless
to
you
Len.
both.
Yep.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for coming. Busy room, but go back to work now.